Nerds International proudly presents
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 100. My name is Eric Lemour, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Gary McCallum and Carl Kiesler. How's it going, guys?
Well, I'm okay, but Carl is epic.
Yeah, I'm epic. No, I'm doing okay.
Mediocre at best.
I'm doing great. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing good. Like I was telling you guys, bought a 3D printer, so been having fun with that and painting things that look like food. So, as always.
Maybe you can print yourself some friends to play D&D with, or play Savage Worlds, I should say.
I've been looking all over for files for personality, so I can print myself a new personality.
You don't need one of those. That part's the sweet part. It's just when you turn the camera on, everything goes south.
Yeah. So today, I'm going to take it to the edge with discussion on how to run exciting encounters with combatants of different scales, and that from both perspectives. So from the perspective of the medium-sized heroes fighting huge monsters and huge monsters attacking smaller targets, or in my case recently it was medium size fighting very small creatures about the size of a house cat. So there's that. Carl already said he ran the Cthulhu, the huge Cthulhu mini there encounter, and Gary recently had a frustrating encounter with a gargantuan King Kong type of character, which led to his group switching to 3.5. But anyway, so this is the topic today.
Episode 100, my man. This is a mile marker. Although we did hit 100 last year, with all the bonus episodes, but this is non-bonus episode 100.
Wow!
Yep.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. You wish you were here for all of them. Instead, we had to put up with Harrison for 3.5 years.
All right. So, first, I just want to put something out there that's been kind of bugging me, and I was telling the guys before the show. So the complaint with Gary's group with the gargantuan creature was that you needed a raise to really do any damage to it. It was 17 toughness. So with novice characters dealing, right around maybe 2d6 damage or 1d6 plus 1d8 in that ballpark, I would imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you need the raise on to hit, and probably the raise on damage too to get anywhere near that. And switching to 3.5, and then like I said, I looked up gargantuan characters in D&D 5e. I don't have the I do have the 3.5 here, but I didn't look into that. And turns out that gargantuan creatures in D&D, usually it's an ancient dragon with 22 AC and over 500 hit points. Now, would you put that against level 1 or level 2 characters, Gary?
It just depends on how much I like the people I'm playing with at the time.
Right.
mean, you want to clear a room fast. That's how you do it.
Depends on if you want a TPK or not.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at that and you have to roll like probably 17, 18 every time just to hit it and do about 1d6 plus 2 damage with 500 HP. If every member of the party, if 5 hit every turn, I estimated it would take about 17 turns. If everybody hit every turn. So, yeah.
I didn't realize you were so good at math, Lamoureux. That's impressive.
I mean, I know Richard Wilcox got a combat simulator, and maybe he can run those numbers with Savage Worlds too, like a 17 toughness, how long it would take. And I would imagine it would take probably, 30, 40, 50 rounds if you're lucky.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you used his combat simulator to figure out that it would take 17 rounds for us to kill it in D&D. You did that math all by yourself. I'm so proud of you right now.
You look about 30 HP damage every round, 500. Yeah, that's right around there. So
yeah, and you're not lasting 17 rounds in D&D, especially if you only have 10 hit points. Max hit points at even level 1 to 5, you're dead in one bite.
Yeah. So really, the frustrating part was more about. That would take a long time, but it should take a long time because a creature that size, I mean, let's look at the size modifiers here, page 179 in your core book. Like just a creature size 12, it's 500 tons. Okay. Wow.
That's Godzilla.
And it's D12 plus 9 minimum for strength.
Yeah.
So just hitting you with a fist, it will cause probably 1 or 2 wounds on you just every time it hits, minimum. So it's crazy, but it should. But what it did is force you guys, and you said, Gary, you launched a flaming cart thing at it, and it forced you a rickshaw to think outside the box and make it fun, right? But how long did it take you to figure out you had to take a different approach?
Oh, yeah. We were 4 or 5 rounds into it. Luckily, nobody was dead at this point. And before I decided to spend a round carving the rickshaw handles into sharp points with my axe, and then throwing my oil in and lighting it on fire, and then running it down the street into the great big ape that we were fighting, the big King Kong looking thing.
Yeah.
And then it just at that rate, although I hit it, I just sort of pushed it into the river, and then it drowned. We didn't even kill it. We drowned it.
So was it more like the GM was fed up with the whole thing and just wanted to pull a Eric on it and tell me how you defeated that King Kong?
The funny part is we play with this guy, Ray, and he was like, there's no point in even rolling. We're never going to hit it. There's no point in doing every round. It's like, there's no point in doing this. And then he'd roll the dice. We're not going to, nope. And the entire 7 or 8 rounds that we fought this thing and hid from it and did all sorts of other stuff, he was complaining nonstop that we could never kill it without a race. This is pointless. This is pointless. He'd roll his dice. This is pointless. Every time he was getting mad.
But why did you guys have to defeat that creature? Was there any reason, why maybe you should have just said, hey, let's leave. This is too hard.
The reason we had to defeat it was because the GM put it in front of us.
Okay.
Right? The number one reason that everybody has to defeat the creature.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should have ran away. It was destroying the town. We should have let the town take care of it.
Let the government take care of it.
See, as a GM, I would have probably taken that scenario a little differently and said, okay, the things attacking your village and destroying, the huts or whatever, the town. What do you guys do? Instead of just going into combat, just maybe take it another step where you guys get a plan together, or, have you guys think about it rather than just saying, okay, we're right into combat, round 1. what do you guys do? Because that's where the monotony starts to play.
Yeah.
Where every combat round is like 6 seconds or so, and you're just like, okay, I'm doing this. His turn. He does this. Brainstorm. Like you have time, I would assume, right? Did you have time to like think it out, or you just were thrown right in the middle of it and just say, okay, round 1, go?
Everybody's always got time, right? It's more
exactly.
along the lines of it had appeared through this portal that was bringing in like velociraptors and stuff like that from other worlds and whatnot. It was like a rifts kind of a thing, but set in a wuxia setting. There's these pyramids that could open up portals from different worlds and stuff. And so it had appeared, but when it appeared a few blocks away. Okay. I guess there was another one that we didn't realize, another one of these pyramid portals underground somewhere, and then it burst up from underground, and just started smashing the city that we were in. So we're like, all right, well, we're the heroes. Let's go get this thing. So in the time we had even more time than that, because that was how the session ended. So we actually had 2 weeks to figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, and like Carl said, I mean, if it's kind of a King Kong, maybe that creature was after something in particular. Yeah, I'm thinking King Kong could be a woman that he's in love with, and you can use that against him. And there has something this big for novice characters. You'd think there'd be another way to defeat it. Well, Gary found it. But still,
yeah, that was a cool idea.
Since we're talking about fighting big characters, so little guys versus big guys. So if you have ideas, guys, bring them in. What I got, the first idea I got is to take advantage of the scale bonus to help increase damage by making a called shot and wild attacks. All right, well, you know what? Let's back up a little bit and explain exactly what scale is. So again, page 179 in your book. So you got 2 things in Savage Rules for on the size table. You've got size, and the size will influence your toughness bonus. Well, it will give you a toughness bonus, and it also gives you a range for typical strength. Now, from that, every creature has a scale. So you got tiny, very small, normal, large, huge, and gargantuan. So depending on the size of that creature, you're going to fit into one of those scales. And what scale does is that there's a modifier attached to it that will apply to people attacking that creature, but also that creature attacking other targets. So let's say for gargantuan, it's +6. So that means a normal size creature, so us, human, attacking a gargantuan size of kaiju like King Kong, Godzilla, that size creatures, well, yeah, they'll get +6 to hit it because it's that big. But the King Kong will get -6 to attack a small creature. Well, a normal sized creature in that case. So this can lead to frustrating encounters where that big creature just can't hit anything because it's rolling at -6, right? But there's ways around that, and we'll get to it. So, all right, I'm normal size. I'm attacking a creature, gargantuan size. Right off the bat, I get a +6 to hit it. Now, so why would I want to make a wild attack? Well, I get +hit, and then I'd be vulnerable, which means that I get the creature gets a +2 to attack me. But it's already at -6 to attack me, so -4 is still a hefty penalty there. All right, so now like I said, I'm at +8, so I can do a called shot, let's say to the head. The head will give you +4 damage, but it's a -4. So now instead of +8 to hit, I get a +4, which is still pretty high. But how do I get to that creature's head, right? If it's like as tall as a building, I'm gonna have to climb up it, or maybe fly with a helicopter or get on its head and all that. But so yeah, I'm rolling at +4 to hit, +4 damage, and a +2 from wild attack, +6 damage already. And I'm pretty much guaranteed to hit it. And now with a +4, well, my chances of getting a raise and an extra +d6 damage goes up. So just like that, I get a huge advantage. And don't forget ganging up too. If there's 5 of us, I'll get another +4 to hit. So I'm pretty much guaranteed to hit it with a raise right there. So I'm going to hit at, let's say I deal 2d6 damage with my short sword, of course. And then I get a +6 damage and another d6. So, I can probably hit close to 15 like that, 12, roll 12 on 3d6s. That's not too far off.
You've carved off a nice chunk of its toenail.
Yep.
It's essentially what you are. It's just a human toenail clipper. It's funny too that it took me a while to sort of wrap my head around the idea. We did in 50 Fathoms. They have not kaijus or any of that kind of stuff, but they do have, the godlike monstrous monk apes and stuff like that are quite big and stuff. There's islands. The island to the south, Korth Ta, is full of those great big spiders and giant alligators and stuff. But they're very rare. Like they literally need to be summoned by the red men that live there. So there was an area, or my first encounter with this without using the size and scale was in that session where they went into this jungle and I had them summon this great big monkey thing and whatnot. But it's hard to wrap your head around the idea that you can never miss, and essentially you can't miss the way that you described it, which is really sort of a weird thing. A critical fail is really the only way that you're going to miss. If you have +8 and you're doing a called shot with a ranged weapon, and you need a 4 to hit, even at a called shot, that you're already there. You're already at that 4, right? So I guess if you rolled the dice and got a raise on your dice with the +4, let's say you rolled, a 6 and you're in your +4 to hit it already, that puts you at a 10. That's your raise right there. So it's almost impossible to not hit these things with a raise.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why you want to make called shots to get the extra damage, because you don't need +8 to hit with a ranged weapon. You take some penalties there to try to increase your damage.
Right. Did you mention tests too? Tests?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna bring up. You want to use tests to shake it, distract it, and make it vulnerable. Right. Too, because then it gets even harder for that creature to hit you. It's even easier for you to hit it, and now it's shaken, so you don't even have to roll 4 over toughness to cause a wound because it's already shaken. So unless it's got the hardy monstrous ability, but that's another thing. And if you add that with the called shots and wild attacks, you're going to get raised damage basically every time unless you roll crit fail, right?
Right.
The other thing, like I said before, to hit the head, so I was thinking of how I would handle this. I mean, sure, with a ranged weapon, you don't have to climb up the thing. But if you're a melee guy and you do more damage with melee, how do you get to the head? Now, make something interesting in a combat. How about that guy that wants to climb up Godzilla or whatever? You make it a dramatic task right in the middle of combat. Now, you might say, well, I would make it maybe for 3 tokens, so it wouldn't take too long. But there has to be a trade-off there where if I were playing this, if I was that human rogue with a short sword climbing up Godzilla, and it would take me 2 or 3 rounds to get to the top, I would want the GM to make it worthwhile for me. So I was thinking maybe an additional +2 damage on top of that. I don't know. What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it's all how you set the scene up and how, and the players can do this too. I've had this happen in my Kung Fu Cthulhu game where Kung Fury 2 game where they kind of set it up and I gave them bonuses and stuff like that according to whatever they were saying, how they were either climbing up the big bad guy or if they were bouncing off the big giant throne room that was in there or the barrels. And yeah, it's all on how, you set it up and just give those bonuses out because that's what the creativity comes into play. And that's what we're all here for,
Yeah. And maybe if you poke an eye out and you poke both of them out, then you make that creature blind as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Or give him, if he pokes one eye out, he has now -2 or something, whatever, it doesn't have to be like strictly by what you wrote and by the book, you can add things to it, either pluses or minuses here and there. You're the GM, but make it fun,
Now, I'll ask you something else. I just thought of that. What if it was a whale and someone would want to get inside the whale? How would you deal with that with rules?
I feel like we should put the some sexy music under
Well, actually, in my game last night, I actually played a Ghostbusters game with my home group over online. And it was a mashup of Ghostbusters meets the Men in Black. So there was an alien ship that crashed. And of course, the aliens died and there were ghosts. So the Men in Black call the Ghostbusters and they show up. And the players are the Ghostbusters. And I put in a giant bug from the very first Men in Black movie. Oh, yeah. That thing shows up and it actually swallowed one of the characters. I had him swallow the characters. And he was in there with the proton pack. And of course, on the outside, he had armor, but on the inside, I gave him, not only didn't he get the armor, but I actually gave him like a bonus. I dropped his toughness even further because he's on the inside. Even though I didn't write that down beforehand, I just thought of it, it's fleshy on the inside. Why wouldn't it be easier to damage him? So do something like that.
Yeah, that's like for one point I noted is to never forget the narrative of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That can influence the rules. And, Savage Rules is easy enough that you can make a ruling like that, like you did to reward the players for smart thinking, really.
Exactly.
And then the other point I had for this, the little guys versus big guys, is to exploit weakness. So usually these big creatures are going to have a weakness, or if they don't have one, I would suggest GMs to put one in there for the players, and it's up to them to figure it out. Maybe some research rolls before it, things like that. But I'm thinking like the graboid and Tremors, and you just mentioned the inside of the bug, but the graboids, when they open their mouth, then they, like you said, they don't have the armor in there, so you shoot them at that moment, and so that's kind of a weakness there.
Right.
They could be allergic to something. If it's a demon, of course, there would probably be a holy weapon, things like that. But there should be something in there to where if that weakness is exploited, it will become easier to defeat that creature.
Right. Even if it's something the GM throws in like earlier that you find like equipment or something, maybe there's like some grenades if you're doing a modern game or something that could help you out, or something earlier, in the game, and say, oh wait, we can use that stuff. So
yeah, wasn't it in the first Hellboy movie where he's fighting that kind of big Shoggoth creature, and he's got this explosives, and he just drops it down, and he goes inside, and see, that's epic. That's stuff that you want to let your players do, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add for tips on if you're the little guys, if you're fighting big guys?
No, I think that pretty much covers
if
it.
you're regular sized guys fighting like gigantic creatures, that's what we're talking about. We haven't flipped the script yet. I was trying to. What is scale modifier for? -6, -4, -2.
That's to
How
hit.
does that come into play?
That's to hit.
Yeah, it's a hit.
Like I said at the beginning, if I'm medium and I'm fighting gargantuan, I will get a +6 to hit. But the gargantuan creature will get -6 to hit me.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that was the first column, and then, but now I get it, and I knew that. That's so dumb.
Well, it used to be a lot more confusing in Deluxe because they were both called size. Now they called it different. You got size and scale. So.
Yeah. The other thing too with size, when these things get big, which makes it even sort of more difficult, is gargantuans in Swade now, they get extra wounds. So I mean, you can have these things can have 6 wounds, and I was looking up the giant monk ape, which isn't even actually the biggest one. You got a monk apes are normal size, giant monk apes are giant size. What are these things? It's like they use trees as clubs and can hurl 50-pound stones, but their toughness is only 12. So I don't know, it doesn't say what scale they are, but then there's Donga, and he's like the god, right? He's the 50 fathoms god stuff, and his toughness is 18, and that's what we were fighting. So we were essentially fighting Donga in Swade with extra wounds, and it was next to impossible. And now you got to hit him with all of these bonuses and stuff like that. But here's the other thing too. Even though one of our players had climbed up his back and is, trying to stab him in the ear to penetrate into his brain with her sword and stuff like that. And there was a whole bunch of times where she just, still couldn't penetrate the toughness or pass the toughness to do any damage to him. Now, when you're doing gang up bonus too, if on big creatures like this, if somebody's on top of it, it's you're one of the things we're talking about is don't forget the narrative, but you can't have everybody standing around the base of this thing to get gang up bonus. Now, would you guys include gang up bonus if somebody was on the head 100 feet up and the rest of you were on the feet?
I would. Yes.
Cheater.
Yes.
Cheater.
And I definitely would, if they were going for like a vital, like the ear or something like that, I definitely would lower that toughness because there's no armor inside the ear, really. I mean, if you think about it, it's just like all fleshy in there. So I would make it their toughness like a little bit lower.
Yeah, at least remove the armor bonus. Yeah.
Right. Something, So.
Yeah.
I see how it is. I feel like that's cheating to help your thinking players out.
No, I think it's, like I said, rewarding, smart tactical thinking and not making us to, I swing my sword or I shoot an arrow and wait and wait. I mean, think Smaug in, The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It's Hobbit. The bard, the guy that killed Smaug, it was just one shot, and he got through the armor. So it was a called shot to bypass the armor, and lucky shot.
That little spot. Yeah.
Yep.
Now there was.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say there were so many faux pas. I mean, we're getting back into Swade. I've been playing too much ICRCP. I should have brushed up on my rules. He's a first edition guy. So, that's like sort of his favorite one that we play all the time, first edition D&D. We're going to play 3.5 now. But that's sort of part of it is that we're novice players attacking a giant thing with 18 toughness. We don't have the weapons, magical abilities, or edges or to hit these things. And then when you're trying to roll it, there was a series of crappy rolls. I'm surprised that it didn't kill us. Because I don't even know if we were using the modifiers to reduce its ability to hit us. Like, you know what I mean? The -6 or whatever it is to hit us and stuff like that. He basically, he landed a good hit on one of the players and sent it flying into a building but they have those paper doors and stuff like that. So it essentially threw the paper doors and into a building kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But in my 50 Fathoms game, the players got smart and they went and got a cannon off the boat while this thing was attacking a village or whatever, and then they just walked the cannon through the bush, set it up, and shot cannons at it. That's how they killed it, because cannons do massive damage.
Yeah.
So,
because
I just feel
one thing I bet the GM forgot in your game too is that once a creature is gargantuan, they have heavy armor, so you need heavy weapons to actually damage it.
Mistakes were made, man. Mistakes were made. That's all I got to say when it comes to. But it's weird. Like when I'm doing the math in my head and I'm looking at the numbers, I'm thinking it would be harder to kill something smaller, like a crow and a mouse. You're never going to hit it with a -4 to your penalties or whatever, or -6 to your scale modifier to hit it.
Right, and that's what I want to talk about next, because there was someone on Facebook who had a problem. He was one of his creatures. What's it called? A rock, like those huge birds things, and he couldn't hit the players. He couldn't do anything to them, and it was, he was probably picturing this really threatening and dangerous monster, but it didn't work out. So again, so the easy cop out for this is there's a monstrous ability in the book called SWAT. And what this does is that it negates up to 4 points of penalties for scale. So a creature of gargantuan size, instead of trying to hit at -6, would hit at -2 only. So the chances of hitting increases. And there are other monstrous abilities I found in there too. There's the slam for the giant worm creature in the bestiary. It's basically so the worm is gonna fall on top of you. It comes out of the ground and it falls on top of you, and that's athletics versus agility. Or the creature gets strength damage, and it ignores the scale modifiers for that. And it's 3 small blast templates that are put in a line. So everybody under those 3 templates needs to, succeed on their agility roll versus that creature's athletics, or its strength damage. And at that size, we're talking D12 plus 10 damage.
Here's my other question for you. Let's say you're riding through the desert and you're on the back of your wagon, and then suddenly you see this mouse, but this mouse is like made of gold. And so it's valuable. You don't have no gold and you need some teeth fillings, right? So you decide to get up on your unstable platform, and let's say that it's raining out. So you've got some vision impairment. You're now at like -4, plus this little mouse is small. That puts you at -10. This little mouse he stops and gives you the finger and takes off running, because you're never going to hit him with your 6-shooter.
Right. Well, you use a net or something like that. A trap. You trap it.
A mouse trap. Some cheese.
Always got to work the sideways angles. This isn't like D&D where I could just roll a 20 and I hit.
So see, like for area effect attacks, so let's say a net, or it would be probably for me like entangle with a small blast template or something like that. To attack with a blast template, the player places a template and rolls shooting or athletics for throwing weapons or breath attacks. If the attack is successful, the blast lands where desired. So from what I understand here, and unless someone will correct me, you're just rolling to land it where you want it to land. So the scale modifiers would not apply in this case. At least, yeah, like I said, that's how I understand it. That's how I would run it as well.
Yeah.
So you would use area of effects. If you're a giant, you'd be throwing boulders at people. You could be swinging a tree like Big King Kong there. That I would maybe use a cone template instead, and it works basically the same way. Like I said, don't forget the narrative in there. And even if that creature misses, like if I'm throwing a boulder at a small creature and I miss and I hit the wall, well, the wall probably gonna crumble. So now, how do you follow that up in Savage Worlds? You know, there could be that on their next turn they have to roll agility to get out of the way of the crumbling wall. If they don't, then they get buried, or they get, I don't know, 2d6, 3d6 damage easily. So you don't always have to use the scale. The scale, doesn't apply all the time. And I was just talking about area of effect. The breath weapon is the same thing. It needs to be evaded. Then you have to look at the evasion rules. They're on page 100. It basically gives people another chance to get out of the way. The dragon would use athletics as his breath weapon, and if it hits, the players still have one more chance to get out of the way with, I believe it's agility to get out of the way.
Now, you had also mentioned in something that just made me think of this is the shrink and enlarge. If you had that for a skill, could you shrink yourself down a size, and then you could like shoot a mouse, but and you would go from say -6 to -4?
Yeah. If you have that power, you could do that. Yeah. Make yourself harder to hit too.
Yeah. I always use the shrink and enlarge for, other purposes.
Yeah. When you're a bard and you go to a tavern, right?
Exactly.
Another monstrous ability I found was tentacles.
Yeah.
So obviously this is for a grappling attack, and what it does is it gives you +2 to your grappling. So even with, like, let's say a -4 or -6 penalty to hit normal size creatures, with the +2, it's not as bad. Chances are you're gonna grapple that creature, and usually tentacles, they have more than one, so they can grab a bunch of people at the same time. Don't forget that.
I'm a big fan of the grapple rules. I like how they can lead to damage on successful turns. That's pretty sweet. Now, what if I wanted to grapple a mouse and I'm human sized? Do I just automatically squish it, or do I still have to go through all of the
grapple? You have to use
rule.
scales. Yeah, you have to use scales too. But like I said, if you have tentacles, it's going to help.
Right.
Is there any kind of edges that I can take that are going to bypass some of the scale? Like let's say one of my edges was scale master, and I can shoot small targets more precisely because that's what I've trained on my whole life.
Well, actually,
we have edges for that.
Yeah, we were talking about the big guys versus little guys, but I believe it's called Giant Slayer.
Killer.
Yeah,
Giant Killer.
Yeah, let's look it up here.
Yeah, you get 1d6 damage versus creatures 3 sizes larger or more.
Okay, but
it's a veteran. Yeah.
Okay,
it's a veteran skill.
Yeah,
it's a veteran edge. Yeah.
So I can't be a farmer with a pitchfork with that skill.
No,
too many restrictions in Savage Worlds all of a sudden.
Well, the farmer's got no business fighting creature.
Well, he's trying to get us crops, man.
Go see the wizard. Another monstrous ability I found. It's called. Well, once you're gargantuan, you automatically get the stomp ability. That's on page 176. And what stomp does is it ignores scale modifiers as well. It's basically, if the big monster is going to step on you, he makes an athletic roll versus agility, and if you fail, you are dealt strength damage right there.
Oh, you fail, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, no scale modifiers. So right off the bat, you got the SWAT ability for dragons with their claws. You got the stomp for gargantuan creatures. So, yeah, right there. You can also create your own monstrous abilities. Because when you think about it, you might say, well, that's kind of cheating. But what is SWAT really? Isn't that like cheating? It just removes the penalties. So that's the beauty of Savage Worlds, is that you're, as a GM, you can create any special ability you want. That's why monsters don't get edges with requirements. They're just special abilities because you can make up whatever you want. So make him up. What about dragons? Their wing buffet thing. When they do that, you maybe a roll athletics versus agility, or everybody drops prone, something like that. Could be, like I said, giants throwing boulders, and you use every boulder as a small blast template. So again, no scale modifiers there. And the guy that was with his rock, what about the bird of prey? If you reskin the tentacles, monstrous ability, and you call him talons. I mean, if you've ever seen like on nature shows when like an eagle or whatever just zeroes in on a mouse and comes all the way from, high in the sky, and it just gains the drop on it.
Right.
Basically, don't forget the drop, and then uses its talons, oversized talons, for a grapple and just flies off with it. So you could make an ability like that, call it talons. It works the same as tentacles, so you get +2 to grapple. And also the bird of prey. Don't forget the narrative again. If I was a creature that size flying, would I try to spar with a fighter? Probably not. I would grab that creature, fly off very high up in the sky, and then drop it.
Yep.
And, I think there's a max damage for falling damage. We'd have to look it up, but it's insane amount of damage that will probably guarantee a kill right there. But at the same time, when this is happening, the rest of the party is going to change tactics and find a way to pull that bird back down, right? So it becomes a different encounter. You change the stakes a little bit, and especially after maybe 4 or 5 rounds of nothing really interesting happening, now all of a sudden you've got a critical and dire situation right there.
I need to play with your party, because my party would just be like, I shoot at it.
Yeah.
They don't change tactics.
That's when you wish. That's where you wish you had like a wizard or something, and maybe do a grapple on its wings, or whatever.
Yeah,
could be a fly if you have the fly power. Once that creature drops, it's like a feather fall thing. You just make it, you wait for the creature to drop their prey, and then you cast fly on it, or teleport.
Yeah.
What else? I think that's it. That's all I could brainstorm by myself. What do you guys think? You got any more suggestions there?
I reskinned the tentacles in my Kung Fu Cthulhu game where he showed up. He was he had martial arts in his tentacles, so his tentacles were doing martial arts moves. And so he was fighting like individual dudes. And so I gave him extra bonuses and stuff. So he had all these tentacles fighting individual creatures and stuff like that. So it was pretty epic.
That's awesome.
Now,
you can just reskin stuff. Yeah.
Was there kicks involved with these tentacles? Like, you know what I mean?
Was there what?
Kicks. Like,
yeah. Yes, doing all kinds of kicks and lunges. Yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah,
it was pretty jumps cool. At you and does a flying kick to the face. Yeah. Wait, what? My suggestion is don't send gargantuan creatures against novice level players. I think that's my best suggestion that I can give you.
Here's another thing that we might have. I don't know. It's in the old Superheroes Companion book. Well, it's deluxe edition. I know they're working on. They're probably working on a suede version of it pretty soon. Who knows? But there's combined attacks in the supers where if you're having a hard time damaging something like large, and I use this in my Kung Fury 2 game where they fought the big bad because he was gargantuan, and it's more of like a superhero combat, comic book combat scene where you can basically combine your attacks and get extra bonuses according to that power level of your ability. And you would get extra bonuses to damage and stuff like that. So you could do like outrageous amounts of damage against like one big super attack where, you know, the whole superhero team just comes together and fights and does one cool attack.
It's like a combo
the X-Men
thing?
or something like that.
Is it? Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can look in the old Super's Companion, they have a combined attacks. Maybe you want to integrate that in your regular game, you know?
Yeah, what's that thing in Marvel with the Colossus? Was it the speedball?
The fastball special, I think it's
Fastball
called, or something
special,
like that.
yeah. That's
where he
called.
throws Wolverine. Yeah, yeah, it's like that. It's just like that. So I brought that up in my con game for that super, because Kung Fury was basically a superhero game. I used the book for that, and it worked great, man. Everybody just picking up just tons of dice and just rolling. It's awesome. Really cool.
Nice.
When you're laying down tests to get shaken, distracted, and vulnerable, you cannot stack distracted and vulnerable. So the max penalty or bonus you're going to get is going to be like +2. What is distracted +2? And then vulnerable is -2 to all his rolls?
No, vulnerable means that everybody attacking you gets a +2, and distracted means that you have a -2.
Yeah.
Right. So if you applied these to these giant creatures, you can't stack them. So it wouldn't go -4, -6. He's just at -2.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be a new rule so that I could stack them.
Well, it could be a setting rule for, you know, particular situations. Like maybe you can stack more than one per creature size, creature scale, maybe. So
Right.
on a large, you could do it 1 extra time. On huge, you could do 2 extra times. And gargantuan, you could do it 3 extra times. Same as the extra wounds you get. That could
In
work.
one of the older editions of Savage Worlds, like was it maybe before Deluxe, because Deluxe was when I came into it. Could you test to shake, and then because it's shaken and you shake it again, it gets a wound? Could you double test it? Say one person says, "Hey, stupid," the other person's like, "Hey, dummy," and then all of a sudden it's wounded. Oh,
No, I don't believe it was ever the case.
I don't think you could. Yeah,
man. How
you
cool
can
would it be?
You can start with a test and then add damage, and it actually does damage, but 2 tests don't cause a wound.
yeah.
Yeah. How cool would it be to call King Kong names
fatigue.
until he died?
Verbal abuse.
You could maybe do fatigue. I mean, look at again. Don't forget the narrative. Remember dragons? I think not dragons. Giants. I think it's in Halfrost that if you taunt a giant, they go berserk because they don't like being taunted. So you
That's
could
funny.
have things like that. That, you know, it could work with. It could have different effects against if you use persuasion or if you use, you know, intimidation. Was it? Yeah, it's in Shrek where Donkey and the dragon fall in love. So maybe a persuasion check against a dragon, and the dragon falls in love with you instead. If it's like a cartoony type of game you're running,
Use the Dress to Kill adventure card.
yeah.
Hey, that's something we didn't talk about. Adventure cards.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we are well versed in them. Like, I mean, you got to think. I'll throw that question out to you. Is there any adventure cards? And we'd all be like, oh, because I don't think we've all memorized them. But
I don't
maybe
think there is.
on that action.
But you can make one like that. Yeah.
Well, there's things like Bullseye. If you had that, so if you did manage to land your hit, you could play that card.
Yeah, there's
Maybe.
things that you can double damage, I think.
Right.
Like that. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah, and even if you knew ahead of time that you were going against that giant creature, maybe the GM could use those adventure cards as kind of loot information loot that you find against that creature. Let's say you go to the library and you research that big monster, and then GM gives you an adventure card that will give you, it would be called something like find weak spot, and then you get +4 damage or +1 D10 damage or whatever you want.
There was one that they used last night because I use adventure cards where you have to play it at the beginning of the combat round where there's no jokers and nobody can soak damage that round. And they did it on the big bug. Someone played it. They were talking like, how are we going to take care of this thing? And the guy played it, and it just so happened that that's when they did a whole bunch of damage to it that round. And he couldn't soak it because of the adventure card, even though he was sitting on a Benny. So
isn't that Let's Settle This?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Maybe you guys do know the deck off by heart.
I just used them last night, so that's why. It just so happened to come up last night in the game, which was awesome. It was a good scene, So.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. So I hope you guys listening found these ideas and this discussion helpful, and that you can run better encounters, more fun. That leads to less frustration. But number one advice, like Gary said, don't throw a gargantuan creature against novice characters.
Once again, I got the best advice.
Mm-hmm. It's wisdom. But then again, isn't that how 50 Fathoms starts? Right off the bat, you're fighting that big King Kong guy on Torthcaw, and then you're supposed to leave.
The monk ape. It's a summoned monk ape, but that's situational. That's your party is being sacrificed into the red pool. That's the adventure called Red Pool. I know my 50 Fathoms. I'm naming these adventures off by heart. But yeah, you go off to find parts to fix your boat, to patch it up. When you come back, your party's gone, so you follow them into the jungle. As you follow them into the jungle, the Red Pool adventure, you basically come on a bunch of monk apes. But he has to sacrifice so many of those guys before they actually summon one of these things. And I think the giant monk ape is a toughness of 12, so it's still pretty badass. Yeah, especially for like novice ones, right? But he's a summoned kind of a deal that pops out. And then and if he does show up, man, you're pretty much up S Creek without a paddle. Strength D12 +6. This thing, this is the thing that uses trees as clubs and whatnot, right? And it gets summoned out of the pool. It pops up. So if you can get the drop on all of it, covered in like red goopy sauce. 50 Fathoms is the best. I love it so much. Now I just want to go play 50 Fathoms.
I just wanted to plug a product from friends of the show, made by Sid the Squid and Jan Jetmar for Swag, the Adventures Guild. It's called Shadowcraft, and it's a supplement for assassins in your game. So if you want new abilities for your assassin, and I was told that it would apply to human rogues with short swords if they're assassins also.
Cool.
Rogue assassins. So check it out. Best class, best character concept ever. Screw Gloop.
Wow, that's stiff. That is
right.
that.
I wonder if you could take that Shadowcraft and make a whole like a campaign on it where everybody plays assassins or something like that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I think it's only $1, so
cool.
Why not? So this is Eric saying, grab your sword by the balls.
It's Carl saying, do you want to Benny that?
And this is Gary saying, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everybody. We're out.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. If you would like to reach us, our email is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're the Wild Eye Podcast. Also, if you would like to support us, we have a Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Wild Eye. The Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following patrons: Uncle J. Raz, Alan Bray, Rod Towell, Conrad Erasmus Norbert, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Perry Chalmers, Ray Aristia, Dan Brown, Ian Jetmar, Manuel Sams, Mr. Stagg, Sean Richer, Zovia RPG Maps, Chris Grant, Robert Dorgan, Andy Hall, Brian Kaser, Daryl Cartier, Jens Klonheim, Patrick Greenlaw, Sid the Squid, the Digital Dungeon Master, and Knuckle Dave Anderson. Thank you. We'll see you later.